for consideration by this committee. And lastly, we deal with the minutes. So so let me welcome all colleagues present in the meeting, and I also want to extend words of welcome to, I see the minister on the platform. I don't see the minister as yet. Good morning, Minister.
Morning, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much. All right. From the defense section, let me say the DOD, the department. I don't know who's leading the department now, but we'll get that indication when the colleagues from the department rise to make the input.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, members of the Portfolio Committee. Good morning, Deputy Minister. I'm Dr. Kamere, and I'm leading the delegation. I'm with the acting CFO, who will handle item 3, and together with the Provost Marshal General, Admiral Maputo. We also have Deputy CLOC, General Ndlovu, and the Chief of Staff, General Ramanswane, will join us later to deal with item 4. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Let me ask you to give us apologies if there are any on your side.
Yes, Chair, the SECDEF is not well and is still in hospital.
He's in hospital. All right.
Yes.
And are you aware if the minister will be present in the meeting?
No, Chair, I'm not aware. The minister is present.
The
minister is having connectivity problems, Chair.
Or is having some connectivity challenges. All right.
Yes.
So she is expected to be in the meeting. All right. No, it's fine. Colleagues, Brian, are there any apologies on your side or on the side of the committee?
Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes, DM.
I am not sure, Chair, if I missed something, but the speaker who's just been on the platform now did not introduce herself. Am I right?
She did. It's Dr. Kamede.
Oh, it's Dr. Kamede.
Yes, she did. DM.
No, okay, no. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I missed that. Okay.
Okay. She's leading the delegation because the SECDEF is hospitalized. All right. Okay. Brian, are there any apologies? Apologies from on the committee side?
Yes, Chair. We have 3 apologies, Chair. The first being from Honorable General Olomisa, who's unable to attend. Honorable Lekwasi, she's attending the Section 194 committee. And Nkosi Cebekulu, who's also attending the Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration. I'm also advised, Chair, that the Chief SANDF will be joining the meeting later. He, as well as the incoming COS, are engaged in the inauguration of the recently promoted generals. So they will be joining the meeting later. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. No, it's fine. No, thank you very much.
Chairperson,
yes, Mr. Murray.
my apologies. I just want to know that the chief of the SANDF will join later. What does that mean? Because we are now dealing with point 3, and if he joins later, and this is a point on consequence management. So we already do not have. Well, hopefully the minister will join, but from a structural point of view, the organogram, the accounting officer is not here, and her stand-in is here, but and now the chief of the SANDF, who's the other so-called accounting officer for the uniform side, is also not here. I understand if there are other commitments, but then they should have communicated that so that we can amend our program, because how can we deal with consequence management and the two who's responsible for that is not in the meeting?
Okay, let me hear.
Chair as well.
Yes, Dr. Pasopu, over to you, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm sorry for the problem of network. I won't be able to show my video. My follow-up on the apologies as well, Chair. I'm sorry if this was explained. I'm hearing here that there is an acting CFO. What is happening with this CFO? Can that be clarified? Thanks.
Yes. So the two issues that the Dr. Kamede is expected to explain. One is that today's meeting deals with the consequence management, and that is in the domain of both the accounting officer and, to a certain extent, the chief of the South African Defence Force. And then by their delegation to the chiefs of services and divisions. And the two are not in the meeting to tackle this item or to respond to the questions or the comments of the colleagues. The question is, you understood the question, that you are here as a stand-in. You probably were appointed a day or two, and Eponsi is the chief director in the DOD. Are you assuring us that the matters that we are dealing with are so serious that we can deal with them in the absence of the two authorities? I think the question was along those lines. And then the second question is that even the CFO's position, they were told that someone is acting CFO, and we have not been told of what the situation in respect of the CFO is. And so, yes, in one meeting when you asked, but that was not a report to the committee with sufficient details to justify the appointment of an acting CFO, and for how long the acting CFO will remain acting in that position. And so those are the two matters, Dr. Kamede, you are expected to deal with. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair. The inauguration of the recently promoted members started at 9. So we are hoping that the chief will log on immediately as soon as he's done with it. I don't think it's going to be long because we have 3 stars. 2 actually, 3 stars that are that have been promoted. So I'm hoping that he will be able to log on within an hour. But the second part about the CFO, Mr. Abotsi is doing what we call substantive acting, which means that he has all the delegation to perform the CFO functions. However, when it comes to whether or not we'll be able to answer the questions, it will be difficult for me to answer on behalf of the sectors, the issues of consequence management. However, we can make a presentation, but we are leaving that to the chair and members of the committee to decide whether they want this to continue or not, Chair.
Okay.
Can I make a follow-up?
Thank you.
There's a follow-up, and after that follow-up, I will then take Mr. Mutle's hand, and Mr. Mare is also doing a follow-up.
Can I come in, Chair?
Yes, you can come in, so Dr. Baso.
Thank you very much, Chair. Perhaps, as we all know that in this 6th administration, amongst other things, Chair, that were adopted, but it's no longer business as usual, né? Because there are things that are not going right within our departments. And then that was adopted by this administration, that no more business as usual. Now, Chair, starting from the doctor that is here, the assumption that she is acting on behalf of the accounting officer. Now, do you have a letter to say this doctor today is acting? Because in terms of legislation, we're supposed to have that letter so that she take full responsibility of the department as an acting accounting officer. Secondly, I don't understand what she's saying about the CFO. I didn't hear anything, Chair, because if the CFO this CFO is acting, even then there's supposed to be a letter to say this person is acting CFO. So I am saying, Chair, can we be taken into confidence by a department? The people that are here are going to respond to the questions, and at the same time, are they going to take full responsibility of what was going on? This is a portfolio committee, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, maybe let's dispose this one off first. Let's dispose of this one, the acting position. Thabo and Mr. Mare, let me take Thabo, but I will try to take one, conclude it, and then move to the second one so that we can then move forward. Thabo, over to you, sir.
Good morning, Chair and members on the platform. I want to make a proposal so that at least we progress, Chair. I want to propose that we take the second item and request that in those that are delegated to be in the meeting to ensure that all those that will be responsible for responding to questions. For an example, will be dealing with irregularities, irregular expenditures, and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, which fall within different arms of services. At least those who are at the helm of those arms must at least be present if the chief, who must take the overall responsibility, is not in the meeting, so that they directly respond to questions relating to irregularities that happen within their jurisdiction. But as and when they do that, we can proceed with item number 2, so that they put their house in order, and then we'll take that particular item after the second item. It's my proposal, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I hear you, Mr. Mutle, and let me recognize Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, what Dr. Gomede has responded is a major concern to me. Clearly said that there are certain things that she might not be able to respond to. Now, it's either everything or nothing, because if it's only going to be, if she's only going to be a messenger to relay the questions, then you know, then we've got a problem, because now we've got an agenda point on our program for this matter, and those who must account are not here. So I've got a major problem. I don't know what the state of the illness of the SecDef is. It might be serious. It might be an emergency. It might be out of her control. I don't know. I can only work with what is in front of us, and in front of us is what Dr. Gomede has said. And obviously, we can also not expect from her to take responsibility for things that has happened that she has no control over, or where she cannot make commitments of what consequence management will be introduced, because she hasn't got that authority. And similarly with the CFO, I recall last, where we were informed of on the CFO, is that, there was still this lot of questions about the position of the CFO, and he will, and they have negotiated an exit package and an exit date and things like that. And we had questions at that day. And those questions that we have posed at that day in Pretoria, we have not been responded back to. So we sit in a very much not an ideal situation where the people that we must hold accountable for consequences, they are not here. So what will we achieve? And that's my concern. If it's only relaying questions, then we can put the questions on paper and it can be sent to the two respective people.
All right.
It's not acceptable.
Okay. Dr. Kamete, you've listened to the comments of the colleagues. They are saying this is a parliamentary accountability mechanism, and it assumes that the people with the responsibility will appear before the committee to account on the exercise of the powers entrusted in them and the functions allocated to them. And both of them are not in the meeting. And there's a suggestion from Honorable Mutle that says, in view of that, that the areas we're discussing are strictly within the domain of the accounting authorities, accounting officer, and to an extent, the Chief of the South African Defence, and with the and with their delegated authority to the chiefs of various services and division. So they're saying, man, look, maybe the issue must stand over until then. But there is also a question that Dr. Basopo raised that I want you to deal with, that if an accounting officer, a director general, is going to be away, procedurally, the director general recommends someone who will act in his or her recommends to the minister someone who who is going to act in his or her position. And then the minister decides on that submission. And the same thing with the CFO. And I don't know, they're checking what is the procedure in the department in relation to acting appointments, especially at that senior level. DDGs and maybe not DDGs, CFO, who is post level 16, and the accounting officer, who is also post level 16. Maybe can we also deal with that? And then to deal with the fact that there's a suggestion that we move to the next item, whether the chief who's responsible, who's going to present on that item, is in fact has arrived and is in a meeting to deal with the next item. Should we skip this item until the chief is back? Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Chair, again. I would agree with Honorable Mutle that we can take the fourth item, which deals with Umzimvubu, because we do have Major General McHugh here, who is representing the Army, and this matter is within the Army domain. She will be able to handle all the questions. But as to the first item that deals with consequence management and irregular expenditure, Chair, I need to clear this first. I'm not the acting Secretary for Defense. I was requested this morning to lead the delegation because the Secretary for Defense could not be here. But ordinarily, when the leave is planned and a person is appointed as acting to act in that position, they are normally required to be briefed by the person they are acting for. So in this event, if this was planned, the secretary's vacation, sick leave was planned, then she would have briefed me on all the issues that I needed to deal with while she is away. But that has not happened because I'm not acting, and maybe she wasn't aware that she would not be able to be here this morning. And yes, when you are acting, there must be a letter that is appointing you to act, and that letter normally will stipulate the conditions if there are any limitations to your acting, like you cannot deal with appointments, you cannot deal with the firing of people, you cannot sign maybe things that are over a certain amount of money. So when you are acting, there will be a formal letter, and that formal letter will stipulate very clearly what are your limitations or whether there are limitations in your acting.
Thank you. You have covered that point. Where would that letter be coming from at a level of a Director General? Would that letter be coming from the Director General who's going away on sick leave, or it will be from the Minister, of course, on the recommendation of the Director General, so that we know for the future?
Chair, first, the principle is that an official does not appoint someone to act in their position because it's the same position. So in the case of a DDG, the appointment letter will be signed by the Minister of Defense, but obviously the recommendation would have been made by the Secretary for Defense, and the person who is supposed to act would have been approached, and they must accept the acting.
That is in relation to a Director General. You have explained it the way I understand it. In relation to a CFO who is post-level 16, what is the situation when it comes to that? Who must actually who has the authority to invite the CFO to act?
In that position, the CFO reports to the DDG. Sorry, the DDG, which is the CFO, reports to the Secretary for Defense, and therefore the Secretary for Defense is the one who will appoint the CFO. The CFO, although the CFO is paid at a level 16, but he is a level 15. So he still reports to the Secretary for Defense, Chair.
Okay. So, no, thank you very much. In that case, the acting CFO has the letter appointing him to act in the position. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Is the appointment until when?
The appointment is until the 31st of January, when the current CFO, who's on special leave, will be exiting the system.
Okay. Now, I wanted first to clear that out so that the committee is aware of the acting appointment procedures. Now, having dealt with that, can you still confirm that the chief is not back in the meeting, is not joined the meeting? So it doesn't look like they've joined. Have they?
No, Chair, they haven't joined. We've been trying to reach the chief. Unfortunately, I think they are still busy because they are not picking up. But we are ready to continue with the item on Umzimvubu because there are generals here who can deal with that matter. Thank you.
So how must we accept commitments that the team, the responsible authorities schedule on the day when they are supposed to be before the committee in the future, Dr. Kamet?
Chair, I'm sorry, I cannot answer that because I wasn't part of the scheduling.
The scheduling of the other commitment, because this one was long scheduled.
I can't say because I wasn't part of the scheduling of the activities of the chief.
You are correct, Dr. Komete. Yeah. Yes, we can then pass. Thabo, you still want to come back?
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to comment on the last engagement you had with Dr. Kamete. Chair, seemingly, it will appear that those that are given responsibility are running away from taking responsibility over this particular item. And it can continue to be corrected, Chair. We must send a strong word and condemn this kind of behavior so that those that are responsible, they must respect the portfolio committee. We let them know in time. That is why they've taken time to prepare this particular presentation. But when they must come and present it, and also take questions and account for each and every item that is on the presentation, seemingly they decide to take other commitments rather than prioritize coming to the portfolio committee. It can be correct, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, that is loud and clear. Yes, Mr. Murray.
Chairperson, I want to support Honorable Mutle. I mean, this is not the first time this happened. We have raised this in the past, and it seems like it appears to be those responsible and accountable are running away. And on the day that we have scheduled it, suddenly they are not available. That is just unacceptable. We are dealing today, this point is about consequence management. Surely we as Parliament and as the Portfolio Committee has got recourses to implement consequence management ourselves. So I think I've mentioned it in the past once. But I again want to appeal to you that we get advice from Parliament's legal advisors on our position, because we cannot be taken for granted, and this is actually embarrassing. I mean, we are on a specific path and task and a purpose, and they are just delaying it and are relaying it. It is unacceptable. We've got lots of things to do, and we are making ourselves available, but they are clearly not doing it. It gives the wrong message to us and to South Africa. This is unacceptable, and my request to you is that we postpone this meeting, but that we also get advice from Parliament on our position. Are we just sitting ducks that they can do whatever they want to with us, that we cannot do our work? And if that is the case, are there any recourse? That is my request. It's unacceptable. We have to set the example if we want them to enforce consequence management. Thank you.
Okay, so you essentially second Mr. Mutlewu said, let's keep the first item until the chief of the Defence Force has joined the meeting. In which case, if by the time we exhaust the item that we are going to take now, and he has not arrived, so it means that the matter will have to stand down. That is in terms of your suggestion, until when both of them are in the meeting. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes, and then getting the legal advice. Yeah.
Okay, so you'll help me in structuring the question. The legal advisor must answer in the legal opinion. I think it's true that it's happening, and if it continues, it may pose a problem. So we are saying that let's stop it now before it becomes, endemic. All right. So, colleagues, we can then skip the item on consequence management and then move to the fourth item, that is the report on Umzimvubu. The Major General is in the meeting, is a representative of the Chief of Staff. Let me just check if the DM wants to make a comment before we then close this item properly and move to this item that is being beamed on the screen as we speak. DM, do you have any comment to make before?
No, Chair, thank you very much. I've listened very attentively to the views of the committee members. In the interest of time, Chair, let me just say that I do concur with the proposal that we proceed as suggested, and see if by the time we are dealt with the report on the Umzimvubu Regiment, will be having in the meeting the Chief of the Defence Force. If not, the view expressed by Honourable Member Mare, I think it's in order. And maybe one can come back at that point. But for now, let me step down and concur with the proposed procedure. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, DM. Okay, Dr. Komete, do you want to preface the issues, or you are happy to leave it to the Major General to take us through?
Thank you, Chair. I'll leave it to the Major General, Mekio, to take the committee through. Major General.
Morning, Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are. Don't forget to introduce yourself, Dr.
Yes,
Kamel.
I just wanted to find out if I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm Major General McHugh. I'm representing the SA Army, and I will give today the progress with regards to the previous meeting or session that we attended with regards to our Board of Inquiry, what is the progress thereof. So the purpose of our presentation today is just to brief the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans on the progress of the Board of Inquiry with regards to the incident that occurred last year in 2021 during the July unrest in Umzimvubu Regiment. Just to indicate that our Board of Inquiry was almost concluded when we had that meeting in September, where we were then informed that there is a name list with some attached documents. So when we received in September those attached name list and documents, we had then to reopen that Board of Inquiry just to recall those witnesses as well. So currently, with my presentation, I am just going to reflect preliminary findings and recommendations with regards to that. And in the presentation, I will also highlight that the Board of Inquiry will then be concluded by the end of November. Next slide. Just to give an introduction, since our last meeting that we had, during that meeting that was held on the 14th of September, there was some certain issues that needed clarity. I just highlighted a few of that issues, and today we will also then conclude to see if we answered all those issues and concerns that was raised with our previous presentation. One of those issues was the authorization papers for the deployment that we've presented, and some of the paperwork or questions raised was some of the instructions that we've issued during this operation. Also, the media statements that was released, specifically on the 14th of July was the first media statement, and then thereafter the 21st of July to get the call-ups of these reserve members to assist us with the specific Operation Prosper. In the previous presentation, we've also highlighted with regards to the provisions of the Defence Act of 42 of 2002, where we just indicate the categories with regards to members of the regular force and members of the reserve force on a part-time basis for such periods that we can make use of that specific deployment or making use in any unit for other working environments, as well as the general regulations for the reserves dated the 2nd of June 2017, where just indicate to you if you want to enroll or enlist a reserve, what is the regulations to adhere to. Also the call-up as it happened in Umzimvubu, which included then instructions and voice notes in the social media. Next slide. Also the administrative challenges as identified, which led then to senior members being assigned by Chief Army to visit then the Umzimvubu Regiment to correct the administrative challenges that were taking place during that period of Operation Prosper, when we look at the unrest that took place in July 2021. Also the alleged non-payment, which led then to convene this Board of Inquiry relating to Umzimvubu Regiment. The progress we will now just see today, like I've alluded, it will just be preliminary findings and recommendations that we present then as part of these issues that was raised in the previous meeting. Then also after the discussions, we were provided then with the name list and some attached documents that we also received with regards to the Umzimvubu Regiment that was directed by the committee, and thereafter we request then some time through our Minister of Defence and Military Veterans that we need some time to reopen the Board of Inquiry and then to go through these documentations that we received by the committee to then request the witnesses to give answers on that. And that's why we postponed then the date of the Board of Inquiry to provide feedback. Continue. The next two slides that I want to highlight is with regards to the name list that we received. In our previous presentation, the SA Army alluded that we had about a total strength of 808. But the list that we received then on the 14th of September indicated a strength of 815. So the first slide was then when we consolidated our investigation on the 22nd of September. We just wanted to highlight on this slide, the 815. You will see to the right of the top slide was the payment of members, and then to the left was the status, whether the members were enlisted or non-enlisted. Enlisted, the 196 means that the files were complete and the requirement was complete to be enlisted in the SA Army. The non-enlisted, the 619, is then what you see the color coding reflecting on the slide as indicated from faulty ID number up till the last one where we indicated civilian, is then the reasons why we said the 619 was non-enlisted members. Also to take note, Chairperson, that 619, if you look at the color coding list, will not be the 619, but like I've indicated, if you look at faulty ID numbers, that's 76. If a member had a faulty ID number, it might be that the member also can fall in the category of discharge of that 100 individuals that is there, or it might be even the member can fall in the category of illicit activities. So it means then the 619 will not be calculated as such as indicated on that slide, but reasons given for each individual that we received on that list. The SA Army also provided a file to all the relevant members with our explanations as the color coding is reflected on the slide. With regards to the payment of the members to the far left, Chairperson, you will see the members paid was 130 out of the 196 that was enlisted, and the members not paid was then a total amount of 702. And that gives then the total of the 815 of the list then that we received on the 14th of September. Just to indicate on this slide as well, if Chairperson can see on the color code unaccounted files, by then on the 22nd of September, when we did our thorough investigation, on the 22nd of September, that unaccounted files we could not account it for. The members could be on the roll call for that specific day, but the files were not in the unit and it was not in our possession to do the roll call to see if those members were in actual fact part of that. You will also see the second last one with regards to the age. Those 5 individuals that we've reflected on there, it means when you look at the general regulations, the cutoff age to join or to be enlisted means that you must be under 65. So those 5 individuals was by then already above the age of 65. So those individuals could not then be part of the enlistment criteria. And then the last one, Chairperson, we just highlighted as well. It was also a civilian member that was part of that grouping. And unfortunately, this enlistment was just for members in uniform and not for civilians. Then the next slide, Chairperson, we did then a final consolidation by looking again in the unit lines at the formation, the specific formations that had members as well as the Army headquarters to see if we can find some of these files that was accounted for. So, Chairperson, I just wanted to highlight the difference between the previous slide and this slide. That was the stats concluded on the 25th of October. That Chairperson will see the unaccounted files. We could find some of the files, but 3 files were still unaccounted for up till to date. Those files is not in our possession and is also not at Umzimvubu Regiment. The other factor that I also wanted to highlight, out of the 808 that we presented in September, you will see the last slide, we indicated there that these members did not form part of the headcount. When the team was sent to the Umzimvubu Regiment, we had our own roll call where we did our headcount. 6 of those members we could not find on our list, as well as the 1 civilian member that we've added on there that was not part of that reserve force unit. So the members that did not form part of our headcount that we had, the list of 808 was then 7. Like I've indicated, those 7, the 1 the civilian and the 6 was not part when we did the roll call with our senior officials that went then to Umzimvubu Regiment. Next slide. Now the progress regarding the Board of Inquiry, like I've indicated, Chairperson, on the 14th of September, we then received this list with attached documents. And thus we had to ask the President of the Board of Inquiry to reopen this board, because there was some of the documentations that we received. We had then to question our witnesses and to see if there's maybe new witnesses of the information that we received on the 14th of September. And thus today we would like to give our prelim findings and recommendations, because the board date that we gave to the President of the Board of Inquiry for Umzimvubu Regiment, we gave him a target date of end of November to conclude then this, and then we can then give the final findings and recommendations to members of the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans. Continue. This is in the prelim findings that we just want to highlight to the committee members today, Chairperson. The first one we just want to indicate with regards to the media statements that was issued by Chief Army Corporate Communication, dated the 14th of July, indicated that all reserve members must report for duty at first line on the 15th of July 2021. This actually indicates then, it means this is reserve members already enlisted at their respective units that had to report for this operation, where uncontrolled events took place, included the looting events in the KZN and specifically the Gauteng provinces. Based on the media statement release, as we've mentioned, the SA Army HQ wrote an instruction number 53/2021, dated 26 July 2021, highlighting then what is the procedures for these members then to be called up for this particular Operation Prosper. After that, the SA Army Infantry Formation also then wrote an instruction number 323 of 2021, dated 5 August, for the activation then of the reserve call-ups for those members then, that means they belong to those units, can be utilized then for Operation Prosper. We also then in the instruction highlighted that for these members then that reported what was the enlistment criteria then to make use of, not for these members then to take part of this operation. An instruction also entailed in the media statement that the SA Army Infantry Formation instruction was not carried out effectively. Calling up of reserves was done. However, the enlistment that took place was not done according to the normal procedures and guidelines, like I've alluded when we look at the general regulations of the reserves dated the 2nd June 2017. Continue. Other prelim findings that we've also highlighted here was the normal procedure followed for enlistment is that members hand in their documents with their full particulars, like indicated how you do the enlistment at the unit HR section, whereafter they had to leave the unit so that they can then be contacted later for feedback to see, do they qualify as according to the enlistment criteria. This time around in Umzimvubu Regiment, decided to keep the enlistees in the unit lines of 14th Sahaja Battalion and further utilize some of these members who are identified to be later to be the leader group of the unit. There was no authority granted by the specific formation for the utilization of the above mentioned people. State resources were also utilized, Chairperson, in the day-to-day management from the accommodation, as well as feeding these members and other social well-being and logistical aspects that they had to carry out within the unit, of keeping these members who reported for the enlistment at the Umzimvubu Regiment, as indicated. The voice notes and the WhatsApp messages that were utilized were also part of the findings for this call-ups of the reserves, including the enlistees. On the first round, when the president of the Board of Inquiry visited Umzimvubu Regiment, where he had some interviews with some of the witnesses, members of the board were presented with the leader group that was just appointed and who were part of the enlistees. So it means, Chairperson, the first round of the questions asked, the witnesses was not the current leader group that was staffed by the GOC infantry formation. It was the enlistees that took over that responsibility. On the second round of the visit by the president of the Board of Inquiry, members returned to Umzimvubu Regiment. There existed a leader group that was staffed and not the enlistees of Umzimvubu Regiment surfaced then. And they clearly indicated to the president of the Board of Inquiry that they were sidelined during the enlistment process. People who came for the enlistment were placed in their positions, thus replacing that specific leader group. Next slide. The new enlistees that we talk about, Chairperson, and I also want to highlight, during the prelim findings and recommendations that I'm going to present, we are not going to make mention of any names during this presentation, because we are waiting to conclude this Board of Inquiry, and then only we will release the names of these individuals that we are talking about. So these new enlistees, we highlighted the 9 members that were utilized before the enlistment process, the new appointees that we've indicated was then part of that specific leader group. The leader group of the enlistees that were appointed took over all the key positions and then excluded the current leader group that was in actual fact appointed to run the day-to-day maintenance and functions of that specific unit. Members of the existing structure, the 14 members of the unit, these are the members of the unit replaced then by the new appointees. The enlistees were also given authority, illegal authority that I must highlight, Chairperson, to sign for funds as they were given the specimen signatures. And these details will follow afterwards of these amounts that we will reflect then that they approved. The SA Army HQ contingent that was deployed to that specific unit to make then an intervention regarding the existing situation. We also make use then of their documentation and their roll call to get to our findings then. Next slide. The SA Army HQ contingent also addressed all enlistees at the parade ground when they visited to do their investigation. And within that parade ground, they undertook then to all the enlistees that they will be paid in cash a stipend before leaving the unit. The enlistees demanded also uniform to a specific ASB, and that demand was given, whereafter all the enlistees that was there were issued themselves without paper trail and accountability then with regards to the military uniform. The unit expenditure coordinating meetings were also not taking place according to the set criteria when you do financial management in those specific unit that we've highlighted. And the procurement was being conducted not according to procurement processes. The cash that was drawn and sometimes also deposited into the personal accounts of these individuals that we've highlighted on the procurement of these members to do then the purchases of the unit that was not part of the regular members of that reserve unit. Some of the enlistees that went to Umzimvubu Regiment during the July unrest in 2021 were paid salaries towards the end of 2021 after the enlistment process was completed, but some were also not paid, and that was also part of our findings. Chairperson, when we look at what the state incurred, the following costs during the whole process were incurred. And like I've indicated previously, that these members that signed off did not have a delegation to do as required. One of the sub-bullets was the enlistees bus tickets. That was now movement to and from Umtata, where 15th Side Battalion was to an amount of 233,000 rand. military transport to take members home, 81,342 rand. The ration cost for all these members that was fed during those process of the enlistment, they used the commercialized mess of 14 Sai Battalion to amount of 4,270,490 rand. The administration and all the logistical needs and requirements during that period was 54,498. Chairperson, also to highlight the two bullets in the red, we've just indicated when we did the findings. The first one was just the projected figure when those members did the investigation, the team that Chief Army sent to the Umzimvubu Regiment. And then the second is the envisaged total cost after we've got all the total cost amount to that amount of the 28 million that is reflected as such. Continue. Also, Chairperson, to take note, during that period, there was not sufficient accommodation. So they had to procure 400 mattresses for the Umzimvubu Regiment by means working through the commercialized mess funds to the amount of 199,870 rand for the enlistees. And this, just to highlight, was also the illegal use of these funds via the commercialized mess procurement process. And when we look, next slide. When we look at our prelim recommendations, Chairperson, we've indicated here that we recommended that unit OCs, and this is now a recommendation not just for Umzimvubu, but in all the unit environments, that should not misinterpret any of the instructions when higher HQs give that instructions to level 4 units. Follow-up clarity should be done if we do not understand these instructions given to our subordinate units by the OCs to ensure that they are executing the correct orders as per their headquarters. Staff officers from all the formations, specifically in the force prep environment and the reserves, should monitor the operational processes and administration procedures from all the units to ensure that these occurrences that happened should not repeat itself. Also, proper procedures and processes should be adhered to as prescribed when I indicated with regards to the provisions of the Defence Act, as well as the general regulations for the reserves dated 2nd June 27, and all the other SA Army orders that we forward to the units and formations should be adhered to by the Reserve Force Unit OCs before the utilization of people in the units, as the headquarters have to grant authority for payment processes for these reserves that were called up. Chairperson, also we indicated as a recommendation that there was a deliberate act to divert the focus of this Board of Inquiry by bringing the enlistees that were appointed as leader group of Umzimvubu Regiment, while leaving out the actual leader group that was actually staffed in that specific unit. Therefore, it is recommended as a prelim recommendation that disciplinary action is taken against that member, that individual, for deceiving the Board of Inquiry that is convened currently by the Chief Army, as the actual truth was concealed. Next slide. Another recommendation was also the appointment of the enlistees, this specific leader group, as an indication that there were intentions to replace the actual incumbents of the posts, as the new enlistees were already appointed and given authority and specimen signatures. It is hereby also recommended that the enlistees leader group to be removed from the structure of Umzimvubu Regiment and also to be totally removed from the system as a whole. Furthermore, disciplinary action should be taken against the authority, as there was no authorization from the higher HQ to give such instruction. It is also recommended that enlistees should be paid the stipend of the period other than the daily rate salary, as these members did not form part of the reserves and were not utilized during Operation Prosper. A stipend should be paid to the next of kin of all the members. It is now currently, it was then 4 members that passed on. Currently, it's now registered as 15 members, that passed on so that the next of kin can get then this specific stipend. Disciplinary action also should be taken against this member for creating an expectation to the members and a member who authorized the payment of the specific salaries that was issued by December 2021 as currently reflected on the slides given. It is also hereby recommended that the disciplinary action should be taken against a member who authorized the demand and issuing of uniform illegally to these enlistees during the period of July until September 2021. Next slide. Another recommendation that we've also highlighted here as a prelim recommendation is over and above during the interviewing of the witnesses. It came out that the Unit Expenditure Control Committee meetings and the Reserve Force call-up committees are not taking place as guidelines that we gave to these specific units in the unit as it is supposed to. That can lead to the misappropriation of funds as well as irregular call-up of members. It is therefore then recommended as a prelim recommendation that formations do proper monitoring of the said activities, as well as disciplinary actions should be taken against this member for not adhering to the processes that led to this board of inquiry. It is also recommended that formations conduct the close monitoring of the administration with regards to expenditure of all the reserve units. It is also recommended that stipulated call-up procedures should be followed and adhered to in all reserve force units. Next slide. Chairperson, with regards to the state incurred costs, all the losses of the non-public funds included. The first one that we've indicated, the enlistees bus tickets to and from one to another unit. It is recommended here as a prelim recommendation that the acting GOC by the time has distanced himself from signing off these bus tickets. It is also hereby then recommended that the disciplinary action is taken against that specific individual who approved the buying of the bus tickets for the enlistees. On the military transport costing that took the members from the unit home, we also recommended here that disciplinary action should be taken against that specific individual who authorized and arranged the specific transport for the members to return home. When we look at the next bullet on the ration costing from the commercialized mess, it is hereby also recommended that disciplinary action should be taken against that specific individual who placed the request at 14th Sai Battalion to make use of that specific mess by issuing then the rations to feed the members during that current period. Also, the administration of the logistical requirements for that period, we also recommend then the disciplinary actions to be taken against those particular members involved in giving that authority for all the transactions that took place by procuring all the logistical requirements during that particular event. Continue. Also, with regards to the procurement of the 400 mattresses for the Umzimvubu Regiment, we recommend that this amount of money should be recovered from the member who gave the instruction for such procurement. The money should be paid back to that specific mess, indicating in the presentation that was 14th Sai South African Battalion. We've also then our final prelim recommendation. We indicated that the counterintelligence investigation should be instituted to find out what was the actual intention surrounding the situation that prevailed during the Operation Prosper at Umzimvubu Regiment. Like I've indicated, Chairperson, this was just the findings and recommendations prelim. When we conclude then end of November, we will then indicate who is this members that we indicate must be recommended either to be charged or then to pay back the funds or recover it from those specific individuals. Next slide. The way forward then, Chairperson, like we've indicated, there is still currently 2 witnesses that needs to be interviewed. The Chairperson must just take note the time period that we received from September. These members, some of them is members still as civilians in provinces, and the president of the Board of Inquiry is making all means to see that we complete this Board of Inquiry by the end of November, so that we can hand it in to the convening authority, that is then Chief Army, to make his final decision, and then we will then conclude this Board of Inquiry. Chairperson, that is then the presentation on the issues that was raised on the 14th of September, where you wanted clarity. I then hand over, Chairperson.
Thank you very much
I'm handing over
for the presentation. Yes, you don't hear me? Colleagues, can you hear me?
Yes, Chair,
yes,
we can.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
yes, sir,
okay.
we can.
I was beginning to be worried. Okay, General McHugh, thank you very much for the presentation. I must say it's for the first time that we get a response as detailed as this one that goes right into the nub of the problem with clear recommendations and the way forward. But as you are saying, the recommendations are preliminary, and because we are yet to do 1 or 2 or 3 interviews before you make your findings final. Colleagues, over to you. And I don't see the hands. Mr. Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Major General McKeer, for your presentation. And obviously, my comments to you or on your presentation is not against you, because, I mean, you are only the person who presenting this on behalf of the Army. Obviously, it's going to be very important to look at the final Board of Inquiry. There are quite a number of things that was mentioned today, and it was obviously partial mentioning or incompletely mentioning a number of things that poses more questions than it gives answers, in my opinion. I think, Chair, we were presented or given information by some of these enlistees, and it was sent to you and to us, and some of this seems to be very much contradictory to that. So obviously, one don't want to jump to conclusions before we have the final Board of Inquiry report, and I think it will be important for us to not only have a presentation on the final Board of Inquiries, but to interrogate the Board of Inquiry report in terms of what is in there. We know about other instructions that was given, other than that was mentioned today. There was the one from General Mbata on the 26th of July, where there was specifically instructions with regards to NA members should be enlisted via normal enlisting process without delays, and the other SA Army orders be implemented and guided by Colonel Keating. There's also the role of General Moni, General Chalisi, especially General Moni, where he said on the 4th of August, where he changed his orders and said that all members must stay. Now, it sounded today as if there was one member who had hijacked the whole process. And that I find hard to believe, that one member of either Colonel Keating or the enlistees has hijacked this whole process. And then it means that they can actually hijack the whole Defence Force. And we know that there was also pictures of all these generals that was there addressing the people. And this, so I find it difficult to actually ask questions, because these seems to be so much in contradiction. You know, in terms of the people that was paid, there were some people paid around about September, and then there were people paid end of December. So you know, and it seems like these people that was paid at a rifleman's salary, although it seems that less were paid previously. So there are so many information that is lacking at this stage, that the evidence that I think that we have got is quite different. Just the one thing, a stipend. I mean, since when is a stipend, and what is a stipend? Is that a kind of a like in the old days where you have got conscripts that you paid a stipend, or where is the definition from a stipend within the Defence Force coming from? I also find it difficult where they was referring to 2 leader groups. Now, a leader group cannot appoint themselves and then did all this so-called damage that was mentioned. So there must be a higher authority who has authorized this. There must also be some higher authority who has authorized, for instance, the procurement of mattresses, the issuing of uniforms, the commitments given for payments. Even there are information about certain generals who was given the confirmation and the commitment for cash payments, which eventually we know it would have been irregular. So there are so many of the information that was given today that I doubt personally, based on what we have seen as a committee and what we have received as a committee, as incredibly doubtful. So you know, I've got a major concern because someone is not transparent and open with us. So and I just want to find out also the process going to the final board of inquiry, and how, you know, they're going to deal with that. If this is not a credible process, we will damage the image of the Defence Force even further. And if we want to enlist people for future deployments, this is going to make a huge impact. There were people who were called up even on the voice notes. But remember, some of them are also, in my opinion, very disciplined people. There's in the code of conduct, there's one thing that says, I will carry out my mission with courage, but I will also obey all lawful commands and respect by superiors. So you can't expect from lower ranks and even enlistees to ignore instructions from higher ranks and superiors and eventually just blame them for being irregular or illegal. This seems to be a cop-out and shifting the blame to certain individuals. And this is just an easy way out, and it's as I see it now, it's an unacceptable presentation. It is not credible, although it gives a preliminary findings, which can be totally different from the final findings and recommendations. But as it stands now, and as we were presented it today, I mean, I've got so much more questions now than I've had in the past. So I'm not sure how we're going to take this forward, and whether there will be any justification and merits to actually interrogate this presentation now, given that the final Board of Inquiry report and recommendations can be totally different. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Thabo Mutle.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Unlike Honorable Marais, I think will appreciate this report and commend the department for the work done to ensure that they also take action against those that have transgressed in terms of the laws that govern them at that particular level. But my question is with regard to the recommendation that they have made, that some of those amounts take it to and from Umtata, military transport costs, as well as commercialized mess, which is the highest in terms of resources that have been spent there at 4.2 million, recommending that some of those resources must be recovered from those who have committed this, who have transgressed or taken advantage. Chair, I'm raising this because in our last meeting with the department, we were discussing the disadvantage of them not having contracts for such essential services. What is then their view in terms of the current setup of commercialized mess? This should be an eye-opener to say scavengers will always be waiting if you don't tighten your processes. Once such deployments are necessitated, those that are always ready to milk the state resources will use these opportunities, such as the opportunity or powers vested in them to procure certain things to up until a certain delegation to ensure that they just haphazardly do it for their own benefit, not necessarily for the benefit of those that will be on the ground. So what lessons have they learned with this particular case of Umzimvubu, whatever regiment, in this regard? Thank you very much.
Watch out. All right. No. Thank you very much for those questions. All right. Just from my side, I agree with Thabo. I'm not as pessimistic as the first speaker. I think the report it's we're told is work in progress, and has actually unearthed some of the rot, and we are told that the report is preliminary and is still going to process further. So hence, I welcome it as work in progress. And but where I agree with the general, as to what happened later, in my view, who then sent out a message that speaks to the transgressions along the way. But the bottom line is, as the presentation suggests, that the enlistment criteria was not followed. See, so it means that at the entry point, there are certain elements of the criteria that were not followed. And if you don't follow those elements, and the messages that came thereafter would not have actually cured that contamination, because the process was contaminated right from the beginning. And it goes on to say that on top of it, confirmatory instructions, 2 confirmatory instructions in July and in August were issued out, and to straighten things out. But those confirmatory instructions. She calls them South African Army Infantry Formation instructions, were not carried out effectively. So that's why the contamination happened. As to what message came out along the way, sometimes it's immaterial. It's either those messages compounded the problem, and or they did not assist in curing the contamination that happened at the beginning. So as part of that entry process, and leader groups were changed, in fact, were replaced with other leader groups and so on. And the intention there is very clear that, you see, there was some, untoward, in fact, let me say, that too was not part of the normal procedure, as it were. And so that, in my view, says it all. But but my question to the colleague is that she says, I'm looking at the list where she says, I don't have the list with me now, it's page 5 of the presentation, where it lists the categories of matters. And that, made some of them not to be, enlistable, so to speak. For example, I mean, in cases where the ID and the PESAL were not in alignment. So I think there's about close to 200 of those cases. My question to the general is, assuming that alignment is corrected, would that then mean that the number of people who were properly, let's say the ID and the thing it's aligned and is confirmed that indeed those were reserved, would that then increase the number from 113 or 196 of people who are accepted as having been properly enlisted, from 196 to by that number? There are instances, a category where you say it's a faulty ID number, okay? Maybe the two would, one may be incorporating the other, depending on how you have structured the categories. And would also that number two of those who have a faulty ID, as soon as, let's say the fault is the number 10, there's one digit that is incorrect. But however, the person was there and is a reserve, and it doesn't have all these other things, criminal records and so on and so forth. Would also this number 196 increase by that number as well? So, and then the other 5 whose files are unaccounted for. Let's assume tomorrow you get the files, those 5 files, and indeed they were there, you are saying they were there, but you don't have the files. The files are now there, and they confirm that they are indeed military veterans with, and would also the number go up by that number too. So I'm saying number 96 that has so far been verified, it looks too small in my view, and that it may go up significantly by just out of doing further work on the files that have been submitted to the department. So I'm saying let's welcome the presentation and then encourage you to do more work on the files so that the people don't disadvantage simply because the ID number was captured incorrectly. We understand people were in a hurry and the situation was very bad. And it's just that we now is in a peacetime. We must understand when all this happened. It may be that there were good reasons why some of the shortcuts had to be made, but of course not a flagrant violation of the procedures and the enlistment criteria to a point where you enlist even people with incredible, I mean not incredible, with records, criminal records. So I want to leave it at that. So colleagues, I now want to hand over back to you for comment, and then we close the matter.
Then Major General McHugh will then respond to your questions, and he will be assisted by General Umzimvubu for detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just with regards to the first speaker, Honourable Member Mr. Maree, we take note what he indicated, that it is best to wait for the final conclusion of the Board of Inquiry. Also to take note that the Board of Inquiry is an administrative process that the department is adhering to. So if there is any witnesses that we are questioned, by all means, if that witness is having additional documentation on him that can provide more details to the President of the Board of Inquiry, by all means, they can give that documentation. But what we have currently, that is the documentation that we make use when we conclude this Board of Inquiry to do the necessary findings and recommendations. But we take note of all these concerns, of the questions that raised, specifically with regards to the senior members with that instructions that were given, as well as the leader group that did not appoint themselves. We take note of all those questions raised by him, as well as the procurement and the issuing of the uniforms, where these members receive the instruction, whether it's from unit level or higher level. We take note of these questions that he raised. And then also that we wait for the final process for this Board of Inquiry to be concluded, and then to iron out then all the uncertainties when we then present the final Board of Inquiry. Also with the second speaker, with the resources that is supposed to recover, specifically when we look at the commercialized messing where they use the rations. We've got processes and procedures in place, but Chairperson, like you've alluded, that this instructions that's going to the unit level, there is in some instances that these members are not executing higher level instructions. If members are preparing to execute a normal operation, from the Army side, when we get the directive from Chief Joint Operations, we write a commissioning instruction, and in that commissioning instruction from force preparation, we indicate from the feeding of the troops, the issuing of the equipment, up till the number of personnel required for that specific operation. So all these details are highlighted in instructions. It's then on ground that individual that neglects to execute the instructions that were given to them for that specific operation. Chairperson, I also take note on your comment and questions raised, specifically when it comes to the administrative process, how we deal with, and the evidence that we received from the witnesses, from the unit, as well as from the Portfolio on Defense Committee and Military Veterans on the 14th of September, that we are making use, and that is part of the investigation, as well as the enlistment requirement that you've indicated, the total amount of the 196 that we've indicated that's currently enlisted. Chairperson, you are correct when you say some of these color coding. There is some of the members that the unit is making contact with where there is a faulty ID. It is that member's responsibility to go to Home Affairs to correct this ID. Some of these members that is registered on our system, the system will pick up it's either a wrong digits of the force number or wrong digits of the ID number. Those members were reflected as such to see if we got the right name and surname at least, and they were informed with regards to that. But in some cases, Chairperson, like I've indicated, when a member has a faulty ID number, that specific individual might have then an illicit activity as well. And that requires then that we cannot enlist this member. So with the color codings that we indicated there, the members that we really cannot accept is then where you look at the age and where they were not recommended by that specific career manager or service or division, because some of these members were not just SA Army members, but they belong to other services and divisions as well. So where we could indicate to the member, go to our Home Affairs, go verify your ID number so that we can correct it then on the system. If that was the only detail left in that file, we are requesting that from those individuals also then to be enlisted. But like I've indicated, some of them is not just one on the color code. It's either the faulty ID number, or the member was discharged, or the member also had an illicit activity. But we take note of the questions and concerns raised, and we will gladly, when we conclude this Board of Inquiry, take note of that and see when we finally present them the Board of Inquiry and unpack it to the portfolio to have all these questions and concerns answered. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Okay, there's Malcolm. I don't know who Malcolm is. His hand is up.
Hello, Honourable Chairperson. Can you hear me?
Yes. Who are you?
I am just presenting myself, Captain Daines, the appointed enlistment adjutant of Umzimvubu Regiment during this period last year. May I have authority to speak, sir?
Maybe let's set out the process. Is it possible to draft an affidavit and send it to the who must general who must he send the thing to, so that we don't have to sit in judgment of the matters in case he contradicts your statement or some of the things that you might have said.
There's absolutely no problem with that, sir. I'd just like to convey to General Mercure, thank you very much for a good objective feedback regarding the PowerPoints.
Honorable Chair.
Yes,
Honorable Chair.
Yes, DM. Can you hold on, Mr. Malcolm?
I will do so, sir.
My apology, Chair, for interrupting the proceedings of the committee. The speaker, who is now on the floor, has introduced himself to be a member of the South African National Defence Force, possibly in the reserves. And in the structures within the environment of Umzimvubu Regiment. The meeting is a meeting of the Committee of Parliament. The account that we are discussing of what happened has been presented by department officials, including the officers of the South African National Defence Force. Is it procedural that a member coming from the South African National Defence Force would be allowed to make a submission directly in the proceedings of the of the Portfolio Committee of Parliament. Ordinarily, even with any other person, members of the public would be allowed to be in attendance, but they would be in attendance to observe without the right to speak, because the meeting is of the committee, is of members of Parliament. I don't want to go into what may arise out of the submission that he wants to make, the difficulty that it may pose to the committee, but I'm just rising on procedure. If it is appropriate that the speaker on the floor be allowed to continue with his submission.
Yes.
Chairperson?
Just before you, and Mr. Marais, I think I must rule on the point that has been made. I did ask a question just before I rule on it, but I will also listen to what you have to say. General McHugh?
Yes, Chairperson, I can hear.
Yes, must I refer this person to you in a form of an affidavit from him?
Chairperson, this current member that is talking is a witness. He's a registered witness of the Board of Inquiry. He's having the details of the President of the Board of Inquiry, Brigadier General Umzimvubu. So I will suggest that he make contact with the President of the Board of Inquiry if he's having new information or an affidavit. He's sworn in as a witness, and he must follow those procedures. Thank you, Chairperson.
I think that's the procedure I know. Thank you very much for your guidance on this matter. I now can listen to Shelembe, and then Mr.
Yeah, Chairperson, I'm sorry, because now, anyway, there is a recommendation that has been taken about the member that was speaking. But my concern was that, if the member, say, was not allowed to comment in that meeting, how come, the mayor was invited to the meeting? Because now I'm trying to understand, because before, that meeting is about people invited to come to the meeting. I'm looking now to the extent of the meeting, how the person came in, because it's like now any member can come in. I'm checking if the member was invited. If the member was invited, what was expected of him? Was he coming as an observer, or was he coming to comment? But surely by him being able to be in the meeting, something has happened that the member was invited. So I want to check if the member was invited, by who, on what status, whether observer or to listen or to participate. That's my question. He must be referred to somewhere without knowing how, on what status he was invited to the meeting. Thank you.
This is a public meeting, and so people come to the meeting without any invitation. And the invite was to the department for a presentation on their investigation. Does it assist you, Bob Shelembe?
Yes, of course, it assists me, but Chairperson, I'm worried now in future where we'll get someone come to the meeting, because it's a public meeting. There must be sort of a control that a person cannot just be given a platform to speak if he is there on the status of being observer. So I'm worried, Chairperson, that one day we'll get someone come in, you speak something, but after you've spoken, then you say, oh, the wrong person has spoken something in a wrong platform. Maybe, Chairperson, in the future, let's say there must be a control to know who will be, participating in the engagement, so that we don't have that similar situation.
Okay, I think I've covered you to say that I checked who Mr. Malcolm is. The intention was to receive the briefing on the thing, and it's been clarified that Mr. Malcolm is one of the witnesses, and that he has the contact of the presiding officer, and that if he has any further information, as a person, you must relay that information to. I think that closes the matter in my view. Mr. Mare?
Thank you, Chair. Just to comment on what the Deputy Minister has said, we can decide, we make our own rules in terms of how we want to do our business. And we can invite, I mean, whether this was an invitation or not, we can invite anybody, you know, so the minister cannot prescribe, or the deputy minister prescribe to us.
In this case, Mr. Mare, in this case, I've not invited anybody. I've invited the department.
I agree. I agree with you. However, I just want to say to the deputy minister, we can make our own rules and invitations. Thank you.
Mr. Mare, ordinarily, you know, the deputy minister was correct, and I sought guidance from the presenter, Major General, and she clarified that the person is a witness, and that if he has any further information to submit to the thing, he has the contact details of the presiding officer. Why can't we leave it at that?
Exactly. I don't differ with that at all. So that is the right route, in my opinion. However, I just want to say to the Deputy Minister, in any other situation, we as a committee have got the authority to invite whoever we want to, or to approve or authorize anybody in terms of our own decisions. So that's all that I'm saying. Thank you.
And the deputy minister is a member of parliament, and he served and he chaired a number of committees before, and is pretty aware of the procedure.
Correct.
Hence,
so he should know.
He called a point of order in the beginning, which I sustained. Can we move out of this item, colleagues? We are delaying this issue unnecessarily. All right. Okay, so colleagues, can we now go back to item number 3, just to check if we can then deal with it. Dr. Kamede, do you have any information as to whether we can proceed with the matter?
Honorable Chair.
Sorry. The DM will take precedence.
My humble apology, Chair. My humble apology. Just before we the committee steps down from the item we're dealing with, I thought that I should just make 2 observations that for purposes of future business of the oversight, we should get, for ourselves clarity on how we deal with these issues. I have listened to the comments made by, my apology, I've listened to the comments made by and observations made by Mr. Mare, Honorable Mare, and realize that if we are not vigilant to what his comments imply, we will be unable in future to ensure proper interface between the department, the ministry, and the oversight. You see, Honorable Mare made the following observation, Chair, with I beg for your indulgence. He says there are contradictions between the account given by the department and those of the enlistees, of those who were enlisted. And he further then says there are other instructions which were issued by the command, which are not mentioned in the report that has just been shared with the Oversight Committee. And he further says there is a higher authority which was responsible for some of the directives. And concludes by saying there is a shifting of responsibility in the report that he is discerning. Now, I'm not raising these statements to question their accuracy or how factual they are. I'm raising a procedural matter, which is that at the level of Parliament as an oversight over the department, how do we deal with the information around the activities of the department if we do not rely on the information the department places before the committee? I'm saying this because you see, any one of the members of Parliament, I would imagine, has possibilities of interacting with individuals within the department. But if when discussing the work of the department, when the department must account, the oversight does not rely on the reports tabled by the department, the accounting officers of the department, and we foreground information that we have picked up on the sidelines, it is going to make matters, I submit, difficult, Honorable Chair and honorable members. We've got to find a way in which we play the game by the rules or within the stipulated frameworks. If the department's report as presented, there is a strong feeling that it is inaccurate, it is an inexact presentation of the facts, then the department has misled the Oversight Committee. And that is a matter formally that we must take up, and even the ministry must come into it. Why the department would mislead the oversight and present wrong information about what happened at Umzimvubu. I just thought that that is something which we may want to think about, Chair, and possibly not necessarily conclude today, but going forward, it's something that we must be alive to. Lastly, I want to say that, Honorable Chair and honorable members, I had the opportunity to go through two other documents which I'm not sure whether the committee has had sight of their contents. The one is the Army Inspectorate General's investigation into the Umzimvubu Regiment, called ARM. And that investigation is actually the Inspectorate's evaluation of the report of the Board of Inquiry. The other document is the Chief of the Army's remarks on the findings and recommendations of this report of the Board of Inquiry. Now, there are interesting things that are said there by the two offices. What I note is that the Inspector General's report says something at the end, which is also important for us to note, which is that it says the Board of Inquiry and the interviews they undertook with the members, including their findings, are not consistent with the evidence presented and somehow reaches conclusions that are not directly from their engagement with the witnesses. You see, it is different from what Mr. Mare is saying. Here, the Inspector General says the material before the Board of Inquiry was not efficiently handled or was not technically evaluated by the Board of Inquiry. That is something else. But I think because the Inspector General is a statutory structure, it is important that we must take note of that comment. And of course, from the comment, the remarks of the Chief of the Army, what I also lastly take as important is that the Chief of the Army says, I've taken note of the findings and the recommendations of consequence management, but I also want to recommend that the Chief of the South African National Defence Force must consider instituting an investigation into this matter by the Defence Intelligence, because there are certain things that do not rhyme with me. I just thought that those two comments from those two documents, the oversight may want to just follow up because they were not presented here. They may, want to take the issues up in later engagements. Thank you very much for indulging me, Chair.
No, thank you very much, DM. The committee was not privy to the two documents that you have just referred to, one from the Inspector General and the other from the Chief of the Army. Maybe they are still internal to the department and that they would be factored into the process towards finalizing the report. Can I get an indication, General, that the matter will be considered before the matter is finalized?
Chairperson, yes, and just to indicate, with my presentation, part of the recommendations, the county intelligence is defence intelligence that we've indicated they must do a separate investigation. It was part of the prelim findings that I've presented today. But we take note of the report and it will be included in the Board of Inquiry, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, DM, for that input. But on the first part of your input, in relation to what Mr. Murray said, yes, it was the view of Mr. Murray, and certainly not the position of the committee. But what appeared in my view as the position of the committee is the fact that we welcome the report as work in progress, and that we look forward to it being finalized, and those implicated, called to account eventually. One, and that two, those who at the moment are not part of the 196, but who may later, with further investigation, be verified, should be included to the number. And we refer, the people who are referring to are those with ID numbers, so that faulty ID numbers, so that they are not a disadvantage simply because the people in the office captured their details incorrectly. The two people with whose personal and personal numbers and ID numbers were not in sync. I'm sure with further investigation, that too can be sorted out so that people don't disadvantaged, unnecessarily. And that the five whose files are unaccounted for, and but that some work must be done to look for those files, that if indeed they are found and they are verified, and that their number two be included to the tally. And so maybe let's leave it at that for now, and say that it's work in progress, is accepted in that sense, and that whoever has information that may assist, I'm now speaking generally to the public, whoever has information that may assist the investigators, they know who the investigating authority is, and they must relay that information to that person and not to the portfolio committee, because in that case, it will not be in a position to assist them, because we don't evaluate the information that comes before us. The body that is entrusted with that responsibility is there, created by law, to take all the evidence, weigh them, and make the findings on them. So let's leave it at that for now, and then move to the next item. The next item, I wanted first to check with Dr. Kamede if the people who were waiting for have finally arrived. Dr. Kamede?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I've been informed in writing that the Chief of the Defence Force is meeting with the President. That's why he cannot join this meeting.
Okay. All right. So no, it means that the matter would stand down. Look, in fairness to the chief, usually I doubt if the chief was aware that the accounting officer would not be in the meeting. Is that correct, Dr. Kamet?
I can't answer that, Chair. I'm not aware.
Yes, I want to assume so. And two, that even if, so in that way, when we expect him to come to the meeting, we write to the minister and express that his presence is also required at the meeting. And this time, we did not do it. And because, like all this happened in the last minute. The meeting was planned a long time ago, but we only got to know about the fact that the secretary will not be in the meeting yesterday. So maybe in the future, it was an emergency, we are told, and something we can't do anything about. So we want to leave it at that for now and then decide what we want to do. But before we decide what we want to do, I will ask Brian to just beam one document that would ask you and Aponzi to look at, because it's work since it's our observation since you last presented. Brian? Brian, are you beaming up the document?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Dr. Kamede, please take this home. Where is this now? Okay. Okay. So what this is a tracking document, Dr. Kamede and Mr. Eponsi, that you need to look at. The research unit of the portfolio committee took what was presented to the portfolio committee in November 2021. You gave us the register of all the irregular expenditure, and starting from the irregular with the highest amounts, of course, the highest amount would be irregular expenditure arising from the compensation of employees, right down to irregular expenditure with the lowest amounts below 100,000 rand. It's quite a lengthy document. We appreciate that you gave us this information. So from the highest to the lowest amount, detailing every, the description and the progress to date. In other words, progress to date is progress as in November 2021. He then created a column indicating the latest information in terms of the document that you submitted to us on the 31st of October. 31st of October 2022. So because the discussion is about progress made since the last time. I'm sure the document, you can see the status as in November, Ebonzi and General. Just flip it through, just page it through slowly, this thing. Sorry, so just before that, sorry, stop. Okay, can you see the status in November and status in October, Dr. Kamede?
Yes, Chair.
I
can see the status in November, and yes, and in October, yes, sir, I can see it.
Yeah, and Mr. Bonzo, can you see it?
Yes, Chair, we are able to see it, Chair. Thank you.
And there's a column at the extreme right that records whether there was progress from the last time you received the presentation. Can you see that column?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. And so that is the status a year later. It's not a year later, it's about 11 months later. So, and then this information, Dr. Kamede, it doesn't go to amounts below 4 million. It starts with the highest amount and it ends with the amount with 4 million rand. And because if it included amounts below 4 million rand, it was going to be too lengthy a document. It's 11 pages, it was going to be longer than that, and take the whole time of the meeting. So that's what the research committee has done. So you can see the no progress. Just scroll it down, Brian. We're not discussing it, so that you can see the amounts are familiar. Go down, Brian. These documents also includes new matters that are reflected in the October document and which were not in the previous document. It will indicate where there was no previous reporting. And it will also indicate where there was previous reporting, but there's no reporting this time around. Okay, I think it ends at 4 million, at 4.2. And then after that, it will be wasteful and and fruitless, which is new. It was not in the list because this list spoke to irregular expenditure only, the November list. So this is new as it appears in your list, your October list. That's the reason why it would say no reporting, not reporting. So on progress, there would be no comment because of that. So because we're not benchmarking the current reporting to the previous reporting, as there were no previous reporting on it. Okay, just go down. Okay, right. Let's take another document, the second document, Brian, that reports of the BOI, the status of investigations that are said to be within the BOI environment, and those that are supposed to have been before the BOI environment, but remain, unresolved, or nothing is being done about them. The second document, right?
I'm sorry, Chair, the document would have been sent from the department.
It's from the research. There are two documents. It's this one and the second one.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Oh, yes. Okay. Can you go down? Go down, go down. It's the representation of the matters. Go down. Go down. Go down. Is it the same document? I doubt it very much. My apologies, colleagues.
Chair, may I just ask yourself, how will we deal now with this document that is now presented to us? Are we interrogating that, or is it?
No. We are the colleagues. Okay, let's look at it. Can you give me the sharing, right, Brian? I don't want to share this thing. Is the consequence? It's titled Consequence Management in the DoD Key Noticeable Trend. It has got 4 pages.
Is that the one that starts with tracking DoD consequence management on irregular and?
No, this is the one. This is the one.
Oh,
Mr.
that one. Oh, yeah. So okay.
Okay.
So
just go down. Okay, just go down. Okay, just stop at this. Okay. For example, this document will simple just look at it lifts up matters from the log environment. You can see, and the matters that were finalized and referred to the SecDef. Sorry, to the Chief of the Defense for a final determination, and long time ago, That's a report we got in September, on November last year. And even in this report, it doesn't indicate any progress. I just go down. Okay, so let's go down. Again, matters known but no progress. And slow start to investigation. Slow start to investigation. These are matters where no investigation has happened. 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, 21, 22, and 21, 22. Go down. This talks to the effectiveness of the BOIs, 2.5. BOIs taking long to complete cases, or have simply found no one liable for irregular and wasteful expenditure. So this information is extracted from your document, Dr. Kamete and Epons. For example, this one, the outcome of the BOI could not find anybody responsible due to lack of documentary evidence. Convening authority will reconvene the BOI. BOI complete, but convening authority not satisfied with the outcome due to some gaps. BOI established in 2021, and the president of the BOI requested numerous extensions. BOI completed, but some gaps found, which led to reconvening of investigations. This talks to the effectiveness of the BOIs. All right. So we thought we should just summarize your document so that you see that the committee does look at the information that you are presenting. We would want to leave it at that. Colleagues, can we then discuss it? We said if the chief is not in the meeting, or both the chief and the SecDef are not in the meeting, the matter will stand down. And that motion was seconded. I think we don't have to discuss this any further. We can then move to the next item. And yes, sir.
If I may, with your indulgence, there are two issues that I'm just missing that we have dealt with over the last year. The one was one military ramp project. I see no reference to that, and we know that that is a major problem. And I was just wondering where does that ramp project and the investigations?
It's on the Abacus report, Mr. Murray. I saw a reference to it in this document.
And then Tektura.
Tektura is also in there, or Tektura is either in this document or is part of the fraud and corruption document. I saw it in one of their documents.
Okay, if we could just remember this on that.
Yeah, remember this deals with irregular, fruitless, and wasteful. There's another section. There's another section that is within the environment, Admiral Maputo's environment. It deals with fraud and corruption. Those cases are not in the report. Yeah.
Correct, but remember the Auditor General has reported in terms of fruitless, wasteful expenditure on the RAND project. So in other words, that should be included, and that's why I'm just asking you the question. And then another question just on the latest matters. Is it only coming on the list once it has been so-called classified by the Auditor General as being irregular or possibly wasteful expenditure? Or is it also others that have been identified subsequently? I just want to get clarity on that as well. Thank you.
Okay. Tektura is in this list, Mr. Murray. Is in this list that is before us. And then the second question, you are asking whether this refers to all matters that were flagged by the AG. Yes. and two, the reports that the internal audit flagged them as well. So this list, you have the list that was submitted to us in November 2021. And and the new list obviously will have additional matters that were not previously recorded because they are new. So that is how they keep the register. But I will ask Eponsi to confirm that.
Chairperson, just one. I've just tried to track in that tracking document Textura, but it doesn't pick up Textura. And
just go, it's there. Is the amount is 6 million rand. Just go to amounts that are within that range, 6.8 million rand.
If you could just direct me to the specific one, I'll appreciate that.
But no.
Okay, I'll check it.
We don't. Yeah, so that
I'll
we
check
don't
it myself.
delay
Okay.
Yes, please do. If you think it is not in the document, but it's certainly in the main document, Mr. Murray.
Okay, I haven't seen the main document, but the ones that I'm just looking at, and then in that Textura, have they also then given the case number of? Because you remember they reported that it was.
Mr. Murray, consult the document. It was sent to you. I can show you the date when it was sent to you. But I would ask the colleagues to resend it to you.
Thank you very much. And the case number as well.
Come again?
And the case number that of where they've reported it to the police. They've reported that it was reported to the police. Thank you.
Yes, where the matter has been reported, the case numbers will be there, Mr. Murray. Right. Can you just confirm if these are all the matters that the AG raised, including the ones that were raised by the internal audit, Mr. Aponsi or Dr. Kamete?
Yes, Chair. Chair, you are right. The list includes all the matters raised by the AG and the investigations done by the Internal Audit Division. Chair, you are also right in terms of we did exclude some of the items. If we did include all the incidences of irregular expenditure, we would have ended up on more than 600 cases. So for presentation purposes, hence my second slide deals with the percentage coverage, which was about 98% of the coverage of all the irregularities and fruitless expenditure that we've covered in our presentation, just to show you where we are in terms of the specific items that we are presenting to you. With regard to the differences between November last year and October this year, some of the cases were new due to what the AG picked up during their audit for 2021-2022. Hence, there will not be any reference to it in November 2021. And then when the internal audit did their investigation, their completeness audit, they also picked up issues around March of this year, which relates to the period after May 2021. Hence, there was differences between the two. We've also noted in your analysis document from the researchers with regard to the difference in figures between November last year and October this year. It will also be because of additional irregularities that were picked up on those specific contracts that was paid subsequent to the November year. Hence the discrepancies or the differences in the two figures that were stated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ponce. I think that clarifies matters even further. So we'll leave it at that because the decision was that we would not entertain the matter in the absence of the accounting officer.
Chair?
Yes, sir?
No, thanks, Chair. I'm supporting the postponement of the meeting, but I think it will only be fair that we express our expectation in the next meeting in terms of who should be in the meeting, so that come on the date when they are supposed to be in the meeting, there are no excuses. So I think it's important that we make that expression to say all accounting officers, if we want the SecDef to be in the meeting, the chief of the South African National Defence Force, as well as the chiefs of arms of services
whom the irregular expenditures fall within their domain, they should be able to be in the meeting and be able to come and share with us or respond to some of the questions that might arise in that regard. So it's very important so that at the later stage, Chair, they have other commitment because they were not told on time. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much. So that's the proposal is the accounting officer, the chief of the defense force, and the various and the chiefs of the various services and divisions. Of course, with the support team, the HR, whatever support team, the finance and so on. Including the acting CFO. All right. So when do we need this meeting? Because we are postponing, so we must not push it too far. Otherwise, we'll
as soon as possible. As soon as possible, Chair. As soon as possible. This is critical. This will have a major effect on the audit and the audit outcomes. And you know what should happen in terms of discipline and consequence management.
Okay, colleagues. No, thank you very much. DM, your last word. Maybe before the DM, Dr. Kamede, your last word. Ponce, your last word before we go to DM closing the matter.
Thank you, Chair. I have noted the concerns of the committee, Chair, and I will discuss this matter with the accounting officer. And I've noted the people who are required at the next meeting. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Ponce?
Nothing further from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. DM, I know you, I'm sorry, I'm seeing your message now, but your last concluding word before you can then leave the platform.
Honorable Chair, once again, thank you very much. I really, from my side, have nothing to say at this point, but to note the comments of the committee members with respect to expectations at our next meeting to deal with the matters that are standing over in today's from today's agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues. So the DM and the team is free to leave as we transition to the next item. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can you take the next item? Brian, are we still together?
Yes, Chair. Peter will be taking us through, Chair.
Good day, Chair. Good day, members. This is the proposal for our oversight visit to Bloemfontein in the Free State from the 22nd to 25th of November. Chair, we propose that we travel late afternoon to Bloemfontein, and then on the 23rd, the Wednesday, we'll have a visit to the Air Force Base Bloemstreet, and they will then brief us on the mandate, the history, successes, and the challenges. We'll have a tour of the facilities from 10 o'clock to 12:30. We will then have lunch, And after that, Chair, we'll have to drive to the hotel because members will have to join the hybrid plenary system session from the hotel. And day 2, Chair, what we propose, again, we only have the morning session available, that we then go and visit the offices of the Provincial Department of Military Veterans. And there we expect them also to present on their mandate, the capacitation successes and the challenges. And given that the Office of the Premier has in the past been very involved with military veterans issues, specifically with regards to housing, we think it may be a good idea to invite the Office of the Premier, representatives of them, to then also join us. After that, we'll also sort of do a site visit to some of the houses that have been completed so that we can have a good idea as to what's going on there, Chair. Chair, then we will have lunch and we will then depart for the hotel where members can then join the hybrid plenary session at the hotel. And then on day 3, what we suggested, that is the Friday, we have the whole day. So that in the morning, we go to 3 military hospital and we ask them also there to just brief us on their mandate, the refurbishment project, the successes and challenges. We'll then have a site visit to the facilities. We'll have lunch. And after that, Chair, we'll depart for the Tempe military base. And we suggest there that then we visit the School of Armor and also the 1S tank regiment. And they should also then just brief us on their mandate, achievement and challenges. And then we'll conclude with a tour of the facilities. Thank you, Chair. That would be then the end of the visit.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much for this preliminary work. Colleagues, over to you, Mr. Mare.
Chairperson, thank you very much for the incredible work that Peter and the team has done. It's always much, much appreciated. You remember, I've just one question and maybe request. You'll recall that I've mentioned in the past that the Brug is quite a strategic facility for the Defence Force, because many of the deployments into Mozambique and even further on to DRC often gets let's say sent off from the Brug. So they get accumulated there, and even the transport aircraft will fly from Bloemfontein. So in other words, whether it's equipment, whether it is vehicles, whether it is soldiers, will be done from the Brug. And we also know that at the Brug, there are lots of warehouses with prime mission equipment, spare parts, things like that, munitions that are required in those operations. And we also know that that is where some of the very few, there's about 5-6 environmentally controlled warehouses in South Africa. And I think the Brug and Balmansdal is 2 of the biggest ones. And a request of mine would be, given that we have got challenges there, whether we can include that. If not, then it is one of those things. Then then I don't want to arrange an oversight only for myself to go and do that. I would very much like the committee to be involved in that. Thank you very much.
Do you know that Brug? Can you spell it for me, Mr. Mare?
You spell it DEBRUG, separate. I'm going to send
Mr.
you.
Mare, can you spell the Brug, please?
DE,
okay.
Separate word, BRU, B for Bravo.
Okay.
Brug, like bridge, but it's Afrikaans. So it's actually the bridge, but it's in the name is the Brug.
Okay. All right. colleagues, and is not very far within this vicinity.
Chair, the brug, yeah, there is also, as Mr. Mare said, the demobilization center for the Department of Defense, also training center where they roll out with tanks and practice and so on. The brug is around 30 kilometers, Chair, from the CBD, because I suggest I suspect we'll be staying in the hotel in the CBD. So it's around 30 kilometers from the CBD to the brug, Chair.
Don't worry, I'll show you, Chairperson.
All right. And so can we incorporate it? See, the meeting with the Premier's office, we may as well dispense with that one, and then focus on the houses that, or go to the site visit where the houses are. So it's just that I'm not aware if there is any contribution by the Minister by the Premier's office, that information will come up from the briefing with the offices of the DMV in the region. So it means that yes, can we incorporate the breg there, and then take the briefing, and then we visit the sites.
Chair, I've sent you a pin drop on your WhatsApp. You can see exactly where the brug is.
Okay, so we're removing the office of the Premier. Their contribution will come out in the presentation. Even if it doesn't, we'll ask the questions and get the responses. And all right. So that's an amendment. Any other amendment, colleagues, they want to effect to the program?
Chairperson, not to the program, but maybe I can just request. I've seen that the person who has liaised with me for transport purposes has said that we will fly out on Saturday morning. However, I see that, for instance, to Cape Town, there are flights on the Friday evening, and then only on basically Saturday after lunch. So I mean, I'm prepared to fly out on the Friday evening, so that we don't have to have another night, a room for me. In fact, I will prefer that, because the Saturday again is other issues that we have to attend to. So, but that's just a practical thing. But I have communicated that to the person.
No, it's fine. That is noted. Colleagues, are we done with this? I think we are.
Excellent. I propose.
No objection. Can we move to the next item? Thank you very much.
Are the minutes visible, Chair?
The minutes are visible. Colleagues, this is how many sets, Brian?
We have 5 sets, Chair.
Okay, so this is the first set, 28 September, briefing by AG on the agencies and that report to the 2 departments and the agencies that report to the department, and we did the minutes. This was the attendance list. Any corrections? Colleagues, do we accept the minutes as the true reflection of what transpired in the last in the meeting of in September?
I so propose.
So proposed by Mr. Mare.
I second, Chair.
Seconded by Alice Mthembu. The minutes are adopted. Can we move to the second set? Minutes of 12th October 2022. So those were matters under consideration. So this is the attendance register. Continue. Any correction, colleagues? We're looking for corrections. At the end of the page, is this the reflection, colleagues? If any mover, seconder, the seconder.
I move adoption of the minutes, Honorable Chair.
Ms. Mthembu moves. Okay, Babshele seconded. The minutes are adopted. Let's go to the third set. In 19 October 2022, those were matters under consideration. So this is the attendance register. Finish, go down. Go down. We're looking for corrections, colleagues.
I propose.
Mr. Mare proposes, seconded by seconder. Seconded by Mr. Shelembe. Thank you very much, colleagues. Let's move to the fourth set. Minutes of the 20th October 2020. Please, Mike, attend to your mic. This is the attendance. Any corrections? Continue. End of the minutes, colleagues, to accept the minutes as the true reflection.
Chairperson, just before I do that, again, compliments for so thoroughly and completed minutes. So it is such a wonderful thing to read the minutes and see you can relive what we have discussed. So it is really, really good. So I propose for the acceptance.
Thank you very much. I propose.
I support, Chair.
Proposed by Mr. Mare, seconded by
Mthembu.
Ms. Mthembu seconded. Let's go to the last and final slide. Yes, accepted, Mthembu. Thank you so much.
I propose for acceptance.
You are muted, Chair.
No, there's only 2 pages, eh? Oh,
That's
thanks.
correct.
Mr. Marel
Yeah,
moved
yeah.
and then seconded by? Seconded by?
Seconded, Chair.
Thabo seconded it. Colleagues, wait. Colleagues, I think we not come to the end, Mr. Thabo? Sorry, Mr. Brian Mutle?
Yes, we have, Chair.
Brian Machi? Yes. Thank you very much. And colleagues, I think we can then move. Thank you. I should then thank you for your effort and the contribution until we meet again. Some of us will be meeting tomorrow. In fact, all of us will be in the tomorrow's meeting. With that, thank you so much. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.